What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't being born with some magical gift. It's consistency. Day after day, step after step, effort after effort. Talent can give you a head start, but consistency will decide who crosses the finish line. That's the truth people don't want to hear, but it's the truth you need to embrace. Because talent is exciting, but consistency is unstoppable. There's a reason why so many talented people never fulfill their potential. You see them everywhere, on the field, in classrooms, at workplaces, even on social media. People with extraordinary natural ability, people who seem gifted, people who can shine effortlessly when they choose to. But here's the truth nobody wants to face: talent, by itself, is fragile. It fades when it isn't used. It crumbles under pressure when it isn't reinforced. And it becomes irrelevant the moment someone more consistent steps into the room. Talent can open a door, but consistency keeps you inside. Talent can start the race, but consistency will carry you to the finish line. The world isn't short of talent. It's short of people who are willing to do the unglamorous work. Over and over again, when no one is clapping. Think about it. Talent is flashy. It's exciting. It's what people notice first. But talent without consistency is like a luxury car without fuel. It might look beautiful. It might draw attention. But it won't take you anywhere. That's why you'll see countless talented people stuck in the same place year after year. They had the gift, but they didn't nurture it. They had potential, but they refused to commit to the grind. Consistency, on the other hand, compounds over time. Small, repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment pile up into results that are impossible to ignore. Just like compound interest turns pennies into wealth, consistency turns effort into unstoppable progress. One push up doesn't change your body. One chapter doesn't make you wise. One performance doesn't make you great. But the daily commitment to show up, even when no one is watching, transforms everything. Discipline, fueled by consistency, is what separates amateurs from masters. You don't get to mastery because you were born gifted. You get there because you refused to quit when it was boring, when it was hard, when it was uncomfortable. That's where the gap forms. The gap between those who relied on talent and those who relied on discipline. The talented person can win the spotlight once, but the consistent person earns the spotlight again and again. And let me tell you something powerful: discipline compounds, not just in your skills, but in your character. Every time you show up, you're training your mind to endure, your body to adapt, and your spirit to strengthen. You're not just building habits, you're building resilience. And resilience will always outlast raw talent. Look at the people who inspire you the most. They're not the ones who had a gift and coasted through life. They're the ones who worked when others rested, who practiced when others partied, who pushed themselves long after talent would have carried them. That's why the stories of greatness we celebrate aren't about talent. They're about endurance. They're about that relentless refusal to give up. They're about showing up to the gym at 5 a.m. for years. They're about rehearsing the same lines, playing the same notes, or practicing the same moves thousands of times until excellence became second nature. Talent might have given them a head start, but it was consistency that made them unforgettable. What makes consistency so powerful is that it multiplies your efforts invisibly. You don't see results immediately, and that's where most people quit. They start something, they don't see results fast enough, and they walk away, blaming talent, blaming luck, blaming circumstances. But the truth is, results take time. Seeds take time to grow. Muscles take time to build. Skills take time to sharpen. Consistency is the bridge between effort and transformation. Every time you repeat the process, even when it feels pointless, you are laying down invisible bricks that eventually form an unshakable foundation. The talented person might sprint ahead in the beginning, but the consistent one always wins the marathon. And here's the final truth: talent is a gift, but consistency is a choice. You don't control whether you're born with raw ability, but you control whether you show up every single day. That means greatness isn't reserved for the chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to put in the work. Discipline and consistency are the great equalizers. They don't care where you came from, how much talent you started with, or what obstacles you face. If you choose consistency, you can outwork, outlast, and outperform people who seemed untouchable at the start. Talent fades. Discipline compounds. And when you understand that, you stop relying on what you were given and start creating who you're destined to become. Trust is one of the most powerful currencies a human being can carry. And the most important form of trust isn't what others have in you. It's the trust you have in yourself. Consistency is the only way to build that trust. Every time you make a promise to yourself and follow through, you strengthen the belief that you are reliable. Every time you tell yourself you'll wake up early, you'll complete the workout, you'll study, you'll create, and you actually do it, you're telling your mind, I can count on me. That is priceless. Talent may earn you admiration from others, but admiration is fleeting if you don't back it up with proof. Consistency, however, builds credibility within your own soul. And once you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. So many people spend their lives doubting themselves, not because they aren't capable, but because they've broken their own promises too many times. They say they'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. They say they'll stick to a plan, but quit the moment it feels inconvenient. That cycle erodes self-belief. Every failure to follow through becomes evidence for your brain that you cannot be trusted. It doesn't matter how much talent you have, if deep down you believe you won't keep going. Consistency breaks that cycle. It flips the script. Instead of doubt, you start stacking proof that you are dependable. That proof compounds over time until hesitation vanishes and certainty takes its place. There is a different energy in people who trust themselves. You can see it in how they walk, how they speak, how they attack challenges. They don't need external validation because they know their own strength. That's what consistency gives you. It forges confidence at the core. Not the fake confidence that comes from applause, likes, or quick wins. Real confidence that comes from showing up, doing the work, and knowing you did what you said you would do. Talent can make you shine when the spotlight hits. But when the stage is empty and no one is clapping, it's consistency that sustains you. And that kind of self-belief doesn't need a stage. It radiates everywhere you go. When you start trusting yourself through consistency, everything in life changes. Opportunities that once felt intimidating now feel possible. Risks that once paralyzed you now feel like challenges you can handle. Why? Because you know you can depend on yourself to follow through. You're no longer controlled by fear of failure because you've built enough evidence to know that even if you fall, you'll get back up. Consistency builds resilience into your very identity. It teaches you to stop waiting for the perfect moment and instead create progress from every moment you're given. When you believe in your ability to stay consistent, you stop waiting for luck and start shaping your own future. And here's the part most people miss. Self-trust built through consistency spills into every area of life. If you consistently show up for your health, you'll start believing you can show up in your career. If you consistently show up in your relationships, you'll start believing you can show up in your dreams. It's all connected. Trust in one area strengthens trust in another, and soon you're walking through life with a different level of conviction. You no longer wonder, can I? You declare, I will. That shift in language, that shift in energy, is the difference between people who keep circling around their goals and those who finally break through them. Talent can fool you into thinking you don't need consistency, but life will expose that illusion. At some point, talent reaches its ceiling, and when that ceiling hits, only the consistent keep climbing. The ones who build trust in themselves, brick by brick, habit by habit, are the ones who rise. That trust becomes your armor in uncertainty, your weapon in difficulty, and your anchor when everything else feels unstable. Talent might impress others, but consistency convinces you. And once you are convinced, truly convinced, that you can depend on yourself, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that can hold you back. Talent creates moments, but consistency builds momentum. And momentum is where real power lies. A moment can turn heads, make people notice you, maybe even make them clap for you. But moments fade, they're fleeting. They pass as quickly as they arrive. Momentum, on the other hand, is a force of nature. It doesn't just spark excitement. It carries you forward even when the initial excitement is gone. And momentum can only be built through consistency. It's the daily grind, the constant repetition, the refusal to quit, that builds up an unstoppable energy. Momentum doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on how often you show up. And once you create it, momentum becomes the engine that carries you further than talent ever could. Think about a rocket ship. The hardest part isn't staying in space, it's getting off the ground. That's momentum. When you start something, it feels heavy, slow, like every step is uphill. That's why talented people often stop early. They expect their talent to do the heavy lifting. But those who stay consistent, who keep pushing when it feels slow and painful, eventually break through the resistance. And once they do, everything changes. Suddenly, the effort that felt impossible becomes natural. The work that once drained them now fuels them. Momentum makes progress easier because each action builds on the last, stacking results until the climb no longer feels impossible. Talent can't give you that. Only consistency can. Moments are fragile because they rely on circumstances. Being in the right place at the right time, having the spotlight hit you just right. But momentum is self-created. You don't wait for luck. You don't wait for the perfect opportunity. You build momentum with every small daily action. Every practice session, every early morning, every repetition. Each one might seem insignificant alone, but together they create a rhythm that becomes impossible to stop. That rhythm makes you magnetic. People see it, feel it, and want to be part of it. Momentum doesn't just elevate you, it attracts opportunity. And that's why consistency is more powerful than talent. Momentum can't be handed to you. You have to earn it. Once momentum kicks in, it multiplies everything you do. The consistent person doesn't just improve, they accelerate. Results come faster, skills grow sharper, confidence gets stronger. And the beautiful thing is, the more momentum you have, the less energy it takes to keep going. It's like rolling a snowball down a hill. It starts small, but with every turn, it grows larger and faster until it's unstoppable. That's the compounding power of consistency. Talent can create a single dazzling snowflake, but consistency creates the avalanche. And in life, avalanches move mountains. The difference between moments and momentum is the difference between being noticed and being remembered. A talented person can win attention once, but if they don't stay consistent, people forget them. The consistent person may not impress immediately, but over time, their name becomes unforgettable because they kept showing up when others didn't. Think about the legends in any field. Athletes, leaders, creators. They weren't just talented, they were relentless. They built momentum over years of dedication, and that's why their legacy endures. Talent may give you applause in a moment, but consistency gives you respect for a lifetime. The danger of relying only on talent is that it makes you complacent. You think one great performance, one breakthrough, one opportunity will be enough. But if you don't follow it with consistency, the moment dies and you go back to being invisible. Momentum is the antidote. It ensures that one win leads to another, one opportunity leads to the next, and before long, you've built a wave that carries you forward. That's the secret. Moments impress, but momentum transforms. Talent relies on flashes of brilliance, but consistency creates a current so strong that nothing can hold you back. That's why consistency always beats talent. It turns fragile moments into unstoppable momentum. Motivation is a tricky thing. It feels amazing when it's there. It lights a fire under you, makes everything feel possible, and pushes you to dream bigger. But here's the problem: motivation is not dependable. It's not consistent. It comes in waves. One day you wake up ready to conquer the world, and the next you can't even pull yourself out of bed. That's why people who rely only on motivation fail the moment that spark disappears. They keep waiting for the right mood to take action, and as a result, they never build momentum. Consistency, however, doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care whether you're in the mood or not. It demands discipline. And discipline beats motivation every single time. The truth is, growth is not built on the days you feel inspired. Growth is built on the days you don't. Anyone can work hard when they're motivated. Anyone can show up when it's exciting. But the consistent person shows up even when it's boring, even when they're tired, even when the results aren't visible yet. That's what separates those who succeed from those who quit. Talent may give you a burst of brilliance, and motivation may fuel you for a season, but only consistency ensures progress day after day. If you're waiting to feel like it, you'll wait forever. But if you learn to act regardless of mood, you'll build a power that nothing can take away. There's something incredibly powerful about doing the work on days you don't feel like it. It proves to yourself that you are bigger than your emotions, stronger than your excuses, and more committed than your temporary feelings. That's where identity is built. You stop being someone who tries, and you become someone who does. And when you build that identity, success stops being a question of if and becomes a question of when. Because consistency removes the uncertainty. It guarantees progress. It might be slow, it might be painful, but it is inevitable. And that inevitability is what makes consistent people dangerous in the best way. They can't be stopped. Look at the greatest athletes, artists, entrepreneurs. None of them depended on motivation to carry them. They created routines, systems, and habits that kept them moving forward regardless of mood. They practiced when it wasn't fun. They trained when it hurt. They worked when no one was watching. That's why their results look effortless now. Because behind the scenes, they refuse to let feelings dictate their effort. Consistency creates freedom. It frees you from the roller coaster of motivation and gives you control over your destiny. With consistency, you don't wait for inspiration. You create results that inspire you to keep going. Another truth about motivation is that it's often short-term. It thrives on novelty. You get motivated to start a new diet, a new project, a new habit. But the moment it becomes routine, motivation disappears. That's why most people never stick to anything long enough to see real change. Consistency is what carries you through that middle zone, the place where it's no longer exciting, but the results haven't arrived yet. Most people quit there. The consistent ones keep going, and when they finally break through, everyone else looks at their success and says, "They're so talented," or "They're so lucky." No, they weren't lucky. They weren't just talented. They were consistent when motivation died. That's the difference. So here's the real challenge. Stop chasing motivation like it's the answer. It's not. It's a bonus, not a foundation. Use it when it's there, but don't rely on it. Build consistency instead. Because consistency is steady. It's reliable. It's the force that doesn't waver when life gets hard. The consistent person doesn't wait for the perfect conditions, the right mood, or the ideal circumstances. They create progress out of discipline. And that's why they win. They understand something that talent and motivation never will. Success belongs to those who show up, not just when they feel like it, but especially when they don't. Nobody starts out great. Nobody. The truth is, every master you admire once stood where you are, clumsy, uncertain, and full of mistakes. Talent might make someone's beginning easier, but it doesn't guarantee mastery. What truly transforms effort into excellence is consistency. It's the willingness to practice, long after the novelty has worn off, the patience to repeat the same process 1,000 times, and the discipline to keep refining when no one else is watching. That's the secret no one wants to hear. Excellence is not a gift. It's a grind. And consistency is the grind that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Think about a sculptor. The first strike of the hammer doesn't create beauty. It takes thousands of hits, endless shaping, and tireless refinement before a masterpiece emerges. That's exactly how life works. Talent may give you the first strike, but it's consistency that shapes the stone, removes the rough edges, and reveals greatness. Every small, repeated effort is a strike of the hammer. Each one seems small on its own, but when added together, they carve out mastery. The world applauds the final sculpture, but few realize it was born from years of unglamorous chiseling. Consistency is the sculptor of excellence. What's dangerous about relying on talent alone is that it creates a false sense of security. When someone sees progress come easily, they assume it will always be that way. But talent has a ceiling, and once you hit it, you'll be exposed. The ones who depended only on their gift often plateau early. Meanwhile, the consistent person, the one who embraced the grind from the start, keeps climbing. They build skills brick by brick until they surpass the so-called naturals. That's why you'll often see people with less talent outperform those who seemed destined for greatness. They didn't just rely on talent, they used consistency to transform effort into unstoppable excellence. Consistency sharpens skills in ways talent never can. Repetition builds instinct. It creates muscle memory. It trains your body and mind to respond automatically with precision. That's why athletes practice the same move thousands of times. That's why musicians rehearse the same notes until they become second nature. And that's why leaders face countless small decisions before they can handle massive ones. Consistency doesn't just make you better, it makes you unshakable. When pressure hits, the talented person might crack. But the consistent one, they've prepared too many times to falter. Their excellence is not fragile, it's battle-tested. Another truth about consistency is that it multiplies confidence as much as it multiplies skill. When you've done the work over and over, you no longer wonder if you're capable. You know you are. That's what separates amateurs from professionals. An amateur hopes they perform well when it matters. A professional knows they will because they've done it 1,000 times before. Confidence born from talent is fragile, but confidence born from consistency is unbreakable. It's the kind of confidence that says, I don't need to hope. I don't need to pray for luck. I've done the work and I'm ready. That's excellence. And here's the part that most people overlook: consistency doesn't just create excellence in one area. It becomes a way of life. Once you've proven to yourself that small, repeated actions create mastery, you start applying it everywhere. You stop expecting quick results. You stop chasing shortcuts. Instead, you embrace the grind because you know what it produces. That's when you stop being talented and start being elite. Consistency is the great equalizer. It doesn't care where you started or how gifted you are. If you show up, if you repeat, if you keep pressing forward, excellence stops being a dream and becomes your reality. That's how effort is transformed into mastery, and mastery into legacy. There comes a moment when consistency does more than build skills, more than sharpen habits, more than create results. It builds something deeper. It builds resilience. When you live with consistency, you stop being defined by setbacks. You stop being shaken by failure, because you've trained yourself to keep going no matter what. And that is what makes you unstoppable. Talent might crumble under the weight of obstacles. Motivation might fade under pressure. But consistency creates a kind of inner strength that cannot be broken. When you've shown up 1,000 times, through good days and bad, nothing can convince you to stop on the 1,001st. That unshakable persistence is the edge that makes you untouchable. Failure looks different when you are consistent. For most people, failure feels final. It feels like the end of the road. But when you're consistent, failure is just data. It's just feedback. It doesn't derail you because you know you'll be back tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Consistency removes the fear of falling because you trust your ability to rise. And when fear disappears, courage grows. Suddenly, risks don't scare you. Challenges don't intimidate you, and setbacks don't define you. That's the power of consistency. It transforms failure from a wall into a stepping stone. Talent can't give you that mindset. Only consistency can. Consistency also makes you dangerous in the best way, because people can't predict when you'll quit. Because you won't. Your opponents might outshine you for a moment. They might win a round, but they can't outlast you. You're still there after the applause fades. You're still standing when others have walked away. That endurance, that refusal to stop, creates a psychological edge that talent cannot match. People who rely on talent burn bright and burn out. People who rely on consistency burn steadily and outlast everyone else. And in life, it's not always the fastest who win. It's the ones who refuse to stop running. Another gift of consistency is that it builds emotional stability. Life will test you. It will throw storms, setbacks, and uncertainty your way. If your identity is built only on talent, those storms will shake you. But if your identity is built on consistency, storms don't scare you. You've trained yourself to show up no matter the weather. That stability is rare, and it makes you powerful. When everyone else is panicking, you stay steady. When others are waiting for the storm to pass, you're still moving forward. That's why consistent people rise in chaos. They don't need perfect conditions to succeed. They create progress in any condition. Consistency also gives you control in a world where most people feel powerless. You can't control your natural talents. You can't control luck. You can't control what others do. But you can control your effort. You can control whether you show up today. And that small, daily choice to stay consistent becomes a weapon. It means no matter what happens around you, you always have power. Consistency puts your destiny in your own hands. Talent might make you dependent on circumstances, but consistency makes you independent of them. It frees you from waiting on luck or opportunity because you've built the discipline to create your own. And in the end, this is what makes consistency unstoppable. It becomes bigger than effort. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes your identity. When you're consistent long enough, showing up isn't something you force yourself to do. It's simply who you are. And when that happens, nothing can break you. Because you're no longer just someone chasing results. You're someone who embodies resilience, persistence, and determination. Talent may come and go, but consistency becomes permanent. And when consistency becomes who you are, you become a force the world cannot move. That's the ultimate power, being truly unstoppable. So here's the truth, you can't ignore talent. Might make you shine for a moment, but consistency will make you legendary. Talent can open the door, but consistency keeps you in the room. Talent might earn applause, but consistency earns respect. The people who rise, the people who win, the people who change their lives are not the ones who wait for gifts. They are the ones who show up again and again, long after the gifted have stopped. If you remember nothing else, remember this: your greatness will not come from what you were born with, but from what you build every single day. The habits you choose, the promises you keep, the actions you repeat, those are the things that will define you. Not luck, not talent, consistency. Because consistency is what transforms ordinary people into extraordinary forces. The stage doesn't belong to the most talented. The victory doesn't belong to the most gifted. The future doesn't belong to the ones who start fast. It belongs to the ones who refuse to stop. And that can be you, if you choose consistency.